Hi everyone, and welcome to another instalment of Written by the Rest, the podcast that makes you ask the question, have you considered ruining a historically inaccurate film for me? And the answer is no, but, you've given me the idea now, so let's do an episode on P.T. Barnum. Before I start, as I mentioned in a small announcement, my previous episode, it was like a minute long, we've gone to a fortnightly format now. So what that means is we post something every 2 weeks instead of every week, and that gives me a bit more time to do things like make better content. I mean, we'll wait and see if that's actually the case. As always, I'm with my friend and verbal podcast punching bag, Sam Nicholson. Sam, do you like the 19th and early 20th century circuses?
Well, I didn't go to one.
No?
No. I don't like the idea of a circus, to be honest.
What don't you like about circuses?
Well, especially recent ones, they mistreated elephants in particularly.
Oh yeah, this podcast's touching on that.
And
yeah.
monkeys.
And monkeys,
Every animal,
tigers,
really.
all
Tigers,
animals.
yeah.
Anything with a conscience and can breathe essentially gets abused in
Yeah.
a circus, it's safe to say.
Yeah, and I've not been to one since I was a kid, but I feel like even back then, people, even the 8-year-old me knew that somebody was being exploited for me to have fun.
Yeah, that's why I went to monster truck rallies when I was a kid.
Why?
No one's getting hurt in a monster truck rally, are they? Except the driver.
Yeah.
And it's monster trucks. They go driving over cars. They're crushing stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fun for the whole family.
Fun for the whole family.
Now, I'd like to argue that this isn't exactly a historical secret. I mean, P.T. Barnum, a lot of people would have probably watched the film and gone, this is a bit...
Something isn't quite right.
Something isn't sitting right here. It's a bit Hollywood. But if I had £1 for every conversation that I had correcting people about this, I would have £2, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. It's interesting because, as well, about kind of preparing this podcast, is that I typically, and I'll make no bones about it, I typically use Wikipedia to get me like early life stuff, the parents, where they were born, the basic background, you know?
You can generally take facts like that from Wikipedia and be pretty safe, can't you?
Yeah, and in this case, it was no different. I did double check everything, but it wasn't very well balanced when it came to talking about PT. It didn't talk about a lot of things that it really should have touched on, or it didn't touch on it in much detail, so it wasn't very well balanced. A bit like the BBC. If you're from the US, the BBC, it's the best way I can compare them to anything.
Well, they do have the BBC in the US, don't they?
Oh yeah, they do. It's a world service, isn't it? Anyway, if you have the BBC World Service, you'll know what I mean. I know some people take this as a given, and in some ways this is how history ends up being confused by a lot of people. And some absolute arseholes get remembered in a good light when they really shouldn't have been.
It does happen more often than it should, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've already got ideas to do a hell of a lot more podcasts based on movies that talked utter bollocks. I'm already writing one for Pocahontas.
I mean, I'm sure she was delightful.
I'm sure she was. The people she was around were not.
Yeah,
mostly colonisers.
I'm sure John Smith wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't fantastic.
There's probably 10 John Smiths.
Yeah, this is the thing. It was 17th century Englishmen. They were all called John or James. They were either named after the king or their dad, which was John or James at the time. So, to sum up P.T. Barnum, he was a man who exploited anyone and all to make money or an extra buck. In fact, Barnum has been quoted on several occasions that he was in it for the money. P.T. Barnum, or Phineas Taylor Barnum, was born July 1810 in Bethel, Connecticut. He was a son of Philo Barnum and Irene Taylor. His father was a farmer, innkeeper, tailor, and storekeeper. Now, in the film, I think he was just a tailor, if you remember rightly. You've seen the film, right?
Yeah, I've seen the film.
I did watch it ahead of this, obviously.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, he did a lot of stuff. So Philo clearly couldn't find a profession to stick with.
He should have been a baker.
Yeah. Philo, yeah.
Pastry. Get it?
I thought you were going with he should have been a sailor, or a tinker, or a tailor, or a soldier, or a spy, but never mind.
No.
That's yours was better.
Yeah,
Yours was better. Yours was better. But yeah, he couldn't pick a particular career and stick with it. I don't know if that was a thing at the time. I've not heard of people who are tailors and also farmers, but
I'd have thought it'd be the opposite. If anything, you kind of had a job and stuck to it. Social mobility wasn't exactly at the forefront of people's minds back then, was it?
Goodness no. But also, this guy fucked. He had 10 kids. by 2 wives.
Jesus.
This guy didn't mess around. For anyone who's keeping count, PT was the 6th child by his 2nd wife. For anyone who cares to keep count. Barnum accounts his early inspiration to his grandfather, who was a renowned practical joker. But to be honest, I couldn't find anything else more interesting about him other than the fact that he ran a lottery. So,
sounds legit.
Thanks Wikipedia and other sources, i.e. Google. After his old man died in 1825, Barnum liquidated the family business and went to work...
Which one?
All of them. I know. I think he genuinely liquidated the entire business empire. He went to work in a general store, like the one he liquidated. He did not. In fact, he wasn't living in the streets though. Like the movie also liked to make a point of that he was a raggedy child living in the streets where people had to give him bread. People with facial deformities, apparently, if you remember the film at all. No, he was perfectly comfortable. He had a perfectly comfortable childhood. He had a perfectly comfortable adulthood or early adulthood.
Wouldn't be as good a movie though, would it?
No, they're definitely milking in the whole
that underdog story.
Yeah, exactly. So Barnum continued to do literally anything and everything, including and not limited to owning a general store, working in a store, book auctioning, real estate speculation, statewide lottery. He even started a weekly newspaper in 1892 called the Herald of Freedom, but he got sued by a bunch of old dudes from the church who kicked off about his articles.
Wow. If this was now, he'd have a YouTube channel, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
And he would just spout utter bollocks about COVID vaccines.
He'd definitely be a COVID denier. Yeah. With the jobs that he's got, he would definitely... Real estate speculation,
yeah,
come on.
The lottery runner.
That's the thing. It was like
that's a Ponzi scheme. That's got Ponzi scheme written all over it.
I imagine a lot of them were quite dodgy. Like lotteries were ran quite a lot by mobs. Later on down the line. He also went on to marry a lovely lady called Chariot Hallett. Chariot Hallett.
Chariot Hallett.
I could be way off with that.
Name, isn't it?
Well, Charity's not an odd name for back in those days.
I thought you said Chariot.
No, Charity.
Charity Hallett. Chariot Hallett is a hilarious name.
You know what? I was going to cut this, but you know what? We're going to stick with it. Me not being able to pronounce things is funny.
Charity Hallett.
Charity Hallett was his wife for the next 44 years. Ain't that nice? 44 years of marriage. It's not bad. I'm skipping ahead a bit here, but unfortunately she does die before him, and he remarries like a year later to someone like 40 years younger than him. So he doesn't hang around. But another thing that the movie gets wrong here is that he met her when they were both like 6. Like that's not the case. They met when they were adults.
Oh yeah, isn't his dad fixing someone's dress and she's there or something like that?
And she's trying to learn how to hold a cup of tea, and he looks
and
how dare he, and he gets slapped by the father or something. But again, it all adds into the fake narrative. So far, so good. So he sounds like a cheeky chappy looking for a way to make a few extra bucks and fulfill the American dream, which was like the rage at the time, wasn't it? So
style at the time.
Yeah. So Barnum started his lifelong career as a showman in 1835, about 10 years later, at the age of 25, with a promoter called Collie Bartram. He approached Barnum in his general store. So, seems from his biography he was working a couple of jobs and was on the lookout for some variety of investment.
Right.
Which again, because he's liquidated a lot of his family assets.
Yeah, so he's probably got a fair bit of cash.
He's probably got a wedge on him. So, the investment, unfortunately, though, and this is where it starts to turn dark very quickly in Barnum's showman career. The investment, unfortunately, is an enslaved woman called Joyce Heath, who was apparently... hold on to your hat here, because this is going to blow your mind. Apparently, she was 161 years old and was the nursemaid of George Washington. Come on, that's pretty cool. You'd buy that. You'd buy that enslaved woman, right?
Well, that raises a number of questions. I mean, no.
No, you'd give it a miss.
I wouldn't buy an enslaved person, full stop. Really.
Oh, okay. Not even if they were 161 years old.
I mean, that would make me want them less, because they're going to die soon, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
No return on investment.
Anyway, the rascal that was PT thought it was a great idea and an idea to get rich quick. And I'm going to use a quote here. I had long fancied that I could succeed if only I could get hold of a public exhibition. So early days here, he's seeing this woman as something, or someone, sorry, that he can exploit
Yeah.
as an investment.
He's not buying a slave for some friendship, is he?
No.
I mean, every slave's
So,
exploitation for investment, really.
It's worth stressing that Barnum couldn't actually buy her. So it gets a bit confusing, but this time in
Yeah, this was after the emancipation, wasn't it?
So slavery was still legal in some states,
Yeah.
but in New York it wasn't. In the state of New York, you couldn't own a slave. However, there were loopholes still. So you could rent a slave.
Wow.
Yeah, like renting a car.
I suppose they could probably be in servitude of some variety, couldn't they? Without actually being a slave.
Yeah, there was plenty of loopholes
Yeah.
that didn't get sealed up for
Still is,
years
still
after.
is, really.
Yeah, that's it. Like so, yeah, and basically in Pennsylvania and New York, slavery had been completely outlawed. But that didn't stop. Obviously, that didn't stop Barnum. He was able to rent Joyce, and he rented her for about $1,000. Now, the numbers on $1,000, I think, is tens of thousands of dollars in today's money.
Right.
I would have to double check. I've got some numbers later on, but it's a lot of
I'm
money.
not going to argue with it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. I don't remember the song about renting an enslaved woman in the first act.
No, it would probably turn a lot of people off to the movie, wouldn't
You
it?
think, wouldn't you? Yeah, no. It just, in the film, I just love how it kind of like jumps ahead to him buying a museum. He's like, yeah, I've got a museum. This is great. No enslaving here.
No,
Um,
but it is a glorious movie. It's delightful.
you know what? It is crap, but it's a good film. It's got some good songs.
Hugh
It's
Jackman
got some bangers.
Is just fantastic in it.
Yeah, and Zac Efron and
Zac
Zendaya,
Efron,
and
yeah.
he's got a good
They're all
cast.
good.
We'll touch on some of that later as well. But yeah, so he went on to exploit this poor woman who was basically, spoiler alert, she wasn't 161. She was a little bit younger. She was
50?
probably in her 80s. She was probably in her 80s. Which you've got to think about. The average life expectancy of someone like back in those days wasn't anywhere near 80. Like even if you were well off and you had good health care,
Yeah.
you probably lived until about 45, 50. Maybe even less. Like I'm assuming the fact that you had a lot of infant deaths back then, it was probably actually a lot lower.
Yeah, I remember
If you average it out.
reading somewhere recently that we don't actually live any longer than we used to. It's just the healthcare's better.
Yeah, we're just better at not dying now,
yeah.
thanks to stupid
We-
diseases.
We know about germ theory.
Well, yeah, that does help. But yeah, so she was likely in her 80s, so which would have exacerbated the fact that she looks a lot older anyway. But she was put to work about 12 hours a day, being put on display.
Being old.
Just being old. Like, it was a story that he kind of made about her, though. Obviously, the whole George Washington nursemaid thing, and this is how old she is. Have you ever wanted to see someone that old before? Like, it's likely that not many people have probably seen someone in their 80s, let alone someone
Probably could've
pretending to be 161.
told the truth and made some money.
Exactly. But yeah, she unfortunately died not long after. She
See?
died
Told
only
ya.
exactly. What a rubbish investment.
Yeah.
She died only a few months later in February 1836. So at this point, you'd think, like this poor woman has gotten some peace. Her life is over. PT has paid his money to this man to rent an enslaved woman, as you do. That doesn't stop P.T. Barnum. No, carry on.
Does he know a taxidermist?
You're not far off.
Yeah.
So he does. I love that's where your mind went. Great, he stuffs her.
Well,
Well, he
not
doesn't
in
quite
that
do that.
kind of way.
It's still horrendous. What he ends up doing is he did a live autopsy of her body. So he basically wanted to make. He kind of again he spun another narrative. He spun another lie and said, "Let's find out if she's actually 161 years old. We'll do a live autopsy. Come and
her organs
roll,
cutting down a tree.
roll up. Yeah, let's see how many rings she's got." And what he did is he attracted 1,500 spectators, and they were paying 50 cents a piece, to discover if she was really 160 years old, which strangely enough revealed that she was probably in her 80s. Indeed, not 160, which I would have saved my 50 cents personally.
I mean, what? I get that there was no TV back then, but paying 50 cents to watch an autopsy is a strange thing to do.
Right?
I don't think I'd pay 50 cents to see one now.
No, I don't think I would either. He made a lot of money as well here. Like he made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, which in equivalent money is again tens of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars. If not, it could have reached six figures. I don't. I think I have two copies of my script, and one of them had the numbers and one doesn't,
Yeah.
and this one doesn't. Look it up. Inflation
Let's say
calculators are all over
let's say
Google.
it's 200 grand.
It would have been thousand. Yeah, he probably could have made six figures
Yeah.
easily out of Joyce. So this was the start of Barnum exhibiting his curiosities, or freaks, as he liked to call them. I'm quoting. And this also began what was Barnum's Grand Scientific and Musical Theatre, which is also a massive mouthful.
It is a bit, isn't it?
So after this, we do have a bit of a brief gap. So in 1837, it was called the Panic of 1837, which was basically, for all intents and purposes, a recession which lasted until about the early 1840s.
Right.
Which, you know, we like to have every decade or so now, as opposed to
Every 6 months.
every
isn't it?
every 6 months. But thanks to his slave profits, Barnum had the perfect opportunity to purchase something called the Scudder's American Museum in 1841, which we all know from the film was used to display his oddities, his caged animals, human beings. But we'll get onto that later. Barnum went on to put together tropes and acts for decades to come. One of his most famous, obviously, was Tom Thumb, a child born with dwarfism and began working for Barnum around 1842 as a young child of about 5.
I did not know that is where Tom Thumb came from.
No,
No.
that was in the film.
I've probably missed it.
Weren't paying, you were on your phone, weren't you?
Probably, yeah. Scrolling through Instagram at that point.
Yeah, but yeah, no. Tom Thumb was one of his early exhibits, I guess.
It's a fully grown dude in the movie, though, isn't it? It's not a child.
No, again, this is what the movie's trying to separate itself from.
Yeah.
It's trying to suggest that because I think
child labour.
yeah, it is like a lot of his acts were kids, and we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
But like Tom Thumb started about the age of 5, and he grew up. This was all he knew. He's not like he was 16, 17, 18 or even younger and thought, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. He was thrust into this by his parents. Because, again, we'll touch on it a little bit more later, but in the worst thing is, obviously, compared to what we've discussed so far, this is one of the lesser problem cases, in my books at least, because at least Tom Thumb enjoyed what he did. He was a good dancer. He was good at singing. He was a good attract. Like, he enjoyed what he did, and he actually made quite a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
He was arguably he was a natural performer. Like, this is from what I've read. He was. I mean, I've never seen anything. There weren't videos, but apparently he was quite good at this kind of
to
thing.
silver line this, but the guy was 5.
Yeah, there's no really getting around, is there? It was child labour.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse ones, and I'm going to give you the next one.
Go on.
This is why I'm trying to say this is almost slightly better. So Barnum did have another one of his early acts, was a William Henry Johnson. He was a black cook who appeared in his shows as the I'm quoting here, half man, half monkey, a creature found in the wilds of Africa. Basically, this chap had a slightly larger than average head.
Right.
So he used that to say he's a missing link. Which is this is a guy who clearly probably wasn't earning much money, and they thought, hey, you've got a massive head. Do you want to want to be one of my freaks?
I mean, obviously, I am not happy about the racism, but the fact that he was a slave in the first place is...
Oh, no. So Joyce was a slave. This guy wasn't a slave,
okay,
sorry.
right.
So this guy was a free man.
These people aren't slaves?
No.
Well, by the letter of the law.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. Like, he got paid. Well,
Yeah.
we don't know loads of detail, but it's safe to say he got paid. The bearded lady was also placed on display at a really young age. She was a year old when she was put on display. Is the best way I can put it.
She had a beard at a year old.
She basically started having like mutton chops as a child. Yeah, really young. She was growing hair. I can't remember what the condition's called, but it basically makes you grow facial hair and hair where you shouldn't have it almost at a very, very young age. It's like
I remember
the chemical you produce.
I used to be really into the Guinness Book of World Records when I was a kid, and there was people with that disease, and they like had a face covered in hair.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. and that's where the bearded lady kind of came from. And yeah, again, like her parents were paid money, so she could be put on display, so taking advantage of these children. And the list goes on. They had lots of famous acts. They had Siamese twins, they had the four-legged woman, the human skeleton, all sorts of acts that they would arguably taken advantage of.
Now, if this was QI, a buzzer sound might play when I say this. But to play devil's advocate a tiny little bit,
Yeah.
would these people have had any other choice in what they did at this time?
I think for some of them, they could have potentially found work. Like, so for example, the bearded lady, she actually went on to like marry someone. So back in those days, at least, she probably would have been fine there. For some people, this might have been a pretty limited career field or a path of jobs to do.
This or poverty.
Yeah, I mean, some got paid really well. Tom Thumb, for example, he made a mansion. He was able to build a mansion out of his earnings. I'm not saying that people didn't necessarily earn a decent living.
Yeah.
Some definitely earned more than others, from what I understand. But I don't know. For me, it is one of those things, isn't it? It's putting a freak on display. And where's the morality? Where does that end? If it's their choice, that's great. If not,
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's knowing whether there was choice involved.
Are they forced?
Yeah.
Or like you say, have they got no other choice? Like,
yeah. Are they forced into it by society more than by P.T. Barnum?
Is society... Actually, that's quite a deep conversation. Is the problem here society, not P.T.?
Yeah. Yeah. Is he just taking advantage of the situation rather than the people?
That's really interesting. Such a deep thought. God, this is what happens when we don't drink and do podcasting.
You can actually think.
But yeah, like I say, Tom Thumb, he built a mansion. Basically, everything was adjusted to his size, so he didn't have to deal with
a really tiny house.
Come on, Jesus
Sorry,
Christ.
that was easy.
We're gonna move on. Don't worry. We're gonna talk about his treatment of animals now.
Oh, this is gonna make me angry.
So, it will.
Probably more than the people one, weirdly.
Yeah, it probably will. Yeah. So, Barnum's treatment of animals, unsurprisingly, was even worse. Peter actually lobbied against the film originally to not use any real animals, which is an interesting choice.
Sorry, when you said when you said Peter, I just thought, who's Peter?
Pita bread. like Peter. Oh, I thought you were going to say Peter bread.
I just thought, who's Peter?
No. Peter, the vegan
I've got it now.
Lobbying. I think they kill dogs. Wait, if anyone from Peter's listening, I don't know if you kill dogs. I know you have kill shelters though, so I don't know. Anyway, Peter lobbied for the movie to use like CGI animals and not real animals. I think they kind of missed the point a little bit and probably should have tried to kick back on the legacy of P.T. Barnum. But you'll notice there's quite a lot of CGI'd elephants.
You know what?
In the movie,
I didn't think about it at the time.
Yeah, everything was CGI'd pretty much. Now, like I say, I don't back Peter on many things, but yeah, that's an episode for another day. So Barnum & Co. had a myriad of different animals used in the shows and acts. It's safe to say across all of his animals, all were kept in poor, cramped, unsatisfactory conditions for what essentially are wild animals. So, need to make a point here. None of these animals will have been domesticated. All of them would have been wild. A lot of them obviously came from the wild. It's not like the third or second, second or third generation here.
It's not like the pet elephants you can get now, is it? Like, they are from the wild, they're not from pet shops.
Pet elephants from the pet shop. What kind of pet shops have you been going to?
Weird ones.
I know what you mean, though. You mean ones that have been a little bit more...
I'm just taking the piss.
So,
I mean, like ones that have been in captivity and stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, he was responsible for a lot of shit. And I'm going to go through a list now because I like a good list of animal abuse. He stole elephants in the wild from Sri Lanka. I think he stole about 10. And then he brought them back on a big boat, and one of them died.
A lot of elephants to steal.
A fuck ton of elephants, isn't it? That's too many elephants. One or two. Also, what kind of ship do you have to fit 10 elephants on it?
Fucking big one.
Imagine that order. Imagine going to the harbour master and going, "You're right. I need a ship. Yeah. How big? Massive.
The elephants need to walk 2 by 2.
Do you have an ark? Yeah. How big does it need to be? It needs to fit 10 elephants on it. Well, 9 alive ones and 1 dead.
Oh God.
Anyway, he was known for using bull hooks on elephants. If you don't know what a bullhook is, allow me to enlighten you. So bullhook is a reasonably long pole. It has a metal tip on the end and kind of a hook, and it's used for stabbing elephants in sensitive areas of their body to make them comply and do things that you're telling them.
Wow.
It's a form of...
It's like a cattle prod for elephants.
Kind of, yeah. So like it's a very... So the idea is it's like nerve points.
Yeah.
And it makes the elephant stand up on its legs or get down, or it's just a horrendously horrible thing to train an elephant with. And unfortunately, they are still used in parts of the world today. So if you do get a chance, don't ever, unlike I had to do, don't Google bull hooks for elephants, because that's not nice. He branded his elephants as well on the trunk.
On the trunk?
Yeah.
Why on the trunk?
Is it really better anywhere else?
Well, yeah. You don't want it on your face, do you?
No, it's fair play.
Like, surely the hoof would hurt less.
I don't know. I'd be against branding full stop. It's not like the elephants are going to escape and that someone's going to say, "Oh, that's my elephant."
They might do. There could have been another circus across the street for all you know.
Yeah, true. Yeah, just constantly having an argument about who's got elephants and who's not. So the branding sorted that out. An interesting one as well is he kept beluga whales, as you do.
How did he get a beluga whale?
I mean, he got 10 elephants.
I know, but that's easier than a whale.
Is it?
I'd imagine so.
So it goes back.
Right, if I said to you, "Go and get me an elephant,"
I feel like easy.
Go and get me a beluga.
Too easy, mate.
You'd be like, "I think I'll go for the elephant."
No, I'm not.
How are you going to catch a beluga whale? With a hook.
Harbour Master, what do you want now, PT? I want. All right, I want some beluga whales. Fuck off. Get out. I helped you with the elephants. I'm not doing any more of this shit.
PT.
This is too much, mate. Too much. He had 9 beluga whales.
9?
Yeah, he had 9. Did I not get back to that bit?
What did he
He
do?
had 9 of them.
What did he do with these beluga whales?
Well, you're going to find out. He had them on display between 1861 and 1865. 2 died within 2 days due to not having the correct salt-water balance. So
Just put them in fresh water.
he probably did, and just got the salt shaker out and went, yeah, that'll do.
Oh shit, that's pepper.
But yeah, he killed 2 that way. He killed another 2 not long after by pumping. He basically tried to pump water straight in from the Hudson River, which you can only imagine how disgusting that would have been in the 19th century. Like, it's not great now.
Probably worse now.
But it's, I don't know. I think they still had oysters in the Hudson back then. I don't know. Or did they farm them all? And if that wasn't bad enough, Barnum's museum burnt down on 2 separate occasions. One unfortunately was whilst the whales were in the kind of the basement area, was where they were kept, and they were boiled to death in their tanks.
Fuck me.
So he killed 6 there. So 3 survived out of 9.
Good job you've got 9, isn't it?
Yeah, that's probably why he was like, just in case I don't make it back.
Rule of thirds.
His arguably most famous exhibit was Jumbo the elephant. He unfortunately met an untimely death when he was hit by a train. So after the I know, right? After the music,
does an elephant get hit by a train?
I must admit, I had to read into that because I was like, "What?"
Surely the elephant would be like, "Oh shit, there's a train coming."
I don't know what to do with this. So basically, what happened is because his museums kept burning down, as they do.
What was this guy doing?
I don't know.
Constant insurance claims.
I'm guessing. I wouldn't be surprised. He clearly didn't care about lying to people. But he ended up going on tour. So it was like the old classic, circus tent. That's what he kept doing. And a lot of these circus tents were set up right next to train lines because obviously his animals were transported via train.
Yeah.
The classic train with the lions in the cages.
Card.
Yeah, so that was kind of it. And I don't know the full details, but yeah, the elephant Jumbo was outside having a cigarette and just got hit by a train.
Shit.
I didn't get the blow by blow of that one. I mean, Jumbo did, but sorry, that's horrible. Now, we're hardly in the age of animal rights here, and I which I completely get, and I guess some people could use that devil's advocate argument of, well, animal rights wasn't really a thing. Cockfighting was a big thing. You still did like lots of different things. People didn't consider animals as sentient, so you could arguably defend PT on this, but you can't. So this happened obviously over decades, and again, there's more I could touch on here, but this is what made animal exploitation like this normalised. He even corresponded with someone what we'll call an early animal rights activist over the years, a guy called Henry Bergh, who actually founded the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or the ASPCA for short, because that's a fucking mouthful.
RSPCA sounds better, doesn't it?
Yeah, ours sounds better.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's RSPCA,
It's
which is better.
got
Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? No, not the ASPCA. Aspica. Nah, that sounds crap.
Anything that starts with ass just isn't good, is it?
So it's not like Barnum didn't have someone tapping him on the shoulder about this in a time where animal rights wasn't really a thing. He actually had an animal rights activist saying, "Hey, Barnum, can you maybe stop being cruel to animals and killing them?" So yeah,
Beluga whales are fine.
They've
only got 3 left. They're fine.
They're fine. Have those ones boiled to death? Nope. They've just drowned.
And they're in salt water.
They're not in salt water. But you know, it's one or the way or the other. You're fine. You're good.
Fucking love tins of tuna.
So on a final point, before moving on to Barnum's later life, we all know about the tour that he did with Jenny Lind, the opera singer. Remember that bit?
Big plot point in the movie.
Very big plot point. Arguably one of the largest plot points in the entire film. The movie, for some reason, needed to make Barnum out to be a cheater, for reasons. So they had this affair.
Yeah.
Complete fantasy. Never happened. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that she didn't like PT at all. Like she didn't think he was a very nice chap. She made him early on in the tour because he was making so much money.
Yeah.
She pretty much went to him and said, "Look, we need to renegotiate my contract. You're making so much more money than I am." And yeah, they had to force that to happen. Because he made tens of millions of pounds in today's money.
I suppose the Hollywood movie in general, they've just kind of done whatever the fuck they want, haven't they?
Oh God, like yeah.
But you can't have Rebecca Ferguson and Hugh Jackman locked in rooms together for a year and not have them have an affair.
I guess.
As like it'd be a missed opportunity, wouldn't it?
I don't know. Well, I'm guessing it was for conflict, wasn't it? Because
exactly,
you've got to have conflict in a film or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's complete fantasy anyway. That never happened. Like I say, in fact, they just didn't like each other from the sounds of it. Yeah. So let's get into his later life. So for some reason, in the later life, he starts to become political, and in fact, he becomes quite contradictory, which is a bit weird. Not that the fact that it's weird that he entered politics. That's perfectly normal to be contradictory. He became contradictory in the fact that he was actually starting to rally against things that he profited on earlier on in his life. So, which is also weird because he was quoted as saying, "Politics were always distasteful for me." So I'm a bit confused by his later part of life. But yeah, he ends up talking about racism and supporting anti-slavery laws. He ends up giving money away. So that animal rights chap that I mentioned earlier, Henry, well, he ended up donating money to him to help look after ex-circus animals, which blows my mind a little because, I mean, did he understand the error of his ways? Like,
I mean, people can change.
People can change. Or was it, and I'm going to, this might be me being slightly negative, was it a popularist thing? Was it, because obviously going against slavery, rallying, being quite progressive was actually quite popular back then. But it wasn't a, anti-slavery was definitely becoming more of a thing.
I mean, there was still a really big war fought over it.
Yeah, that was a pretty big war. But overall, like it did quite, you know.
Yeah, I imagine in certain areas, I imagine there was more support for it.
But yeah, no, he ended up being quite in vogue in that respect. So yeah,
maybe he was just. Maybe I'm giving him way too much of the benefit of the doubt here, but maybe that was always his belief system. But he just wanted to make a fuck ton of money.
This is the thing as well. This is one of the things.
Is that worse?
This is my thought on it. So, he could have very easily not liked what he did.
Yeah.
But he didn't give a shit because he was making tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's easy to look the other way, isn't it? When
money's involved. Yeah, like that's almost worse in some respects. I'm not saying that it would have made it better if he was like, yeah, he was a full-on racist and he was cool with that.
It's the fact that you were saying that like he paid Tom Thumb really well and some people seem to have done well financially out of it.
Like again, with going back to Joyce Heath though, the lady that he rented, the slave that he rented, there's nothing to suggest she ever really got any money.
No.
It's not like, and in the nicest way possible. She didn't have much time to spend it, even if she did. She was alive for 2 more months.
I suppose again, is obviously utterly abhorrent as slavery was and is. When it's kind of part of society at the time. It's difficult to judge somebody too harshly at the time for taking advantage of that.
Well, but the thing is, though, it was illegal at this point. Like, slavery was illegal.
Yeah, but you just said he could legally rent a slave.
That's a loophole. But yeah, I know.
I'm sure plenty of people used it.
Yeah, I imagine so. But yeah, anyway, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? He clearly changed a little bit. I mean, he did a lot of philanthropy as well. But the thing is, he did. There's a word for it. So apologies if I've completely forgotten what it is. But it was philanthropy, which actually ultimately kind of benefited him. But yeah, he did a lot of philanthropy as well, which also kind of helped benefit him in a roundabouts way.
Like he got his back garden done.
So P.T. Barnum died of a stroke in 1891 at the age of 80, which isn't too bad. Hope as long as he didn't look 160, you're fine. So Barnum, what a guy. I think I want to do, like I said, I want to do a few more of these.
Yeah.
I think the movie versus the real life comparison, like I said, I've started looking into Pocahontas. That is very interesting. I do think a lot of people get caught up in revisionist history from films as well, taking it as a fact, which you could argue in some cases isn't necessarily a bad thing, because like we both agreed though, it's a good film.
Yeah, good movie.
It's a good, it's got a cracking soundtrack. Like I used to listen to the soundtrack like when I was working.
Yeah, as a piece of entertainment, it's very good.
Yeah.
But clearly it's not a true story.
No, it's not a true story. And also the point is it's kind of whitewashing the racism and cruelty that the thing is that I don't like about it is it's not just saying Barnum wasn't a racist or the people associated with him weren't racist. Yeah. So, for example, the relationship between Efron and Zendaya, I've forgotten the character names, but Zac Efron and Zendaya was making them out as kind of fighting the establishment because I think it was a scene where he tries to go into the theatre with her and people look at him disgustingly. Like, that never happened. Those two characters never existed anyway. But it's going too far with it. It's not just trying to erase the fact that he wasn't a racist. It's actually going the other way and saying, oh, like, these were really good people. If anything, they supported, the black acts that they had with them and things like that. They treated them as equal. It's an interesting thought, but like I say, I'm gonna explore this further because there's other films where this is done to an extreme. I mean, like again, Pocahontas, and I'm using this as an example, but Pocahontas was a Disney film. Like there's obviously going to be some creative license there. I kind of get that.
I think that's kind of the point here as well. Like it's not a hard hitting sort of historically accurate movie, is it? It's a musical.
But I think with something like Pocahontas, and again we'll discuss this at the time, something like Pocahontas is a bit different, isn't it? It's your kind of, you are whitewashing something, especially if you're a native Indian. A Native American.
You could argue it's worse.
Yeah, but anyway, that's us. That was really interesting. I really enjoyed that actually. So yeah, no, like depending on your outlook on life, obviously Barnum turned a leaf or a corner, but that's also easy to do when you've got 4 mansions at the end of your life, and a new career.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a twat, isn't it? Either way.
Yeah, then you know, owning slaves. Sam, give me some pluggables. You've got some sort of really cool interview coming up. Tell me about it.
I have,
please.
yeah. On YouTube from hopefully Friday the 3rd of March. I'll be interviewing Dr. Martin Sweatman out of Edinburgh University about the Younger Dryas period and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Nice.
Fascinating chat about prehistory.
Yes, that's going to be really interesting. Yeah. So if you're into history and you're into someone who can talk more eloquently about history than me.
Someone that actually knows what they're talking about as opposed to us.
Dr. Sweatman's your man.
Yeah.
So, right, okay. Well, let's finish up. Like, if you like the episode, do the usual stuff. Like it, share it, comment it. Open to hearing your thoughts. What do you want to see? What don't you want to see? Have a nice week. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. I'm going abroad. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye now.